So we'll sort of show the different ways that we can attach this. So first off, so I'm just gonna cut down the end here a little bit, maybe just a little bit more. So here I'm using stranded wire. So when we connect it up, it's often useful to tin the front of it, or the terminal part of it. So you can do that with our soldering iron. Just grab a little bit of solder and just apply it to the front. That way we have a solid connection wherever we put it. There we go. Burn some of the insulation, but that's fine. So next we will put a little solder on the actual pad that we're going to connect to. On the front here. That. And then we'll solder this right to it. Being careful not to apply too much. Too much actual force. And that looks pretty good. So you have to have a little bit of finesse here. You'll notice that there's a little bit of solder went onto the other side, but I think we didn't make contact, but we can check that. Using my multimeter. All right, so these connected, make sure that we're, yep, that didn't work. You can see it's actually quite hard to get it. So when we touch the two sides of the terminal now, the LED is not going on. And so that means that this thing's already shorting out. If it's shorted out, then it doesn't matter what our Raspberry Pi is going to do. It's not going to, it's already made the connection. So it's as if you're pushing the button constantly. So we will just remove that wire. This is where your braided cord comes in handy. Just put that on there and remove that. So you can see that we've removed the connection between those two. And we try again. Sometimes if you put it a little lower, let it cool. That may have worked. All right, there we go. So now if I check it again, you'll see that it's now lighting up when I touch to the actual wire that we just soldered on it. So that means that now these two terminals aren't short-circuited, so we're good to go. Now, you have to be pretty cognizant of the fact that these solder connections are really quite weak. They're not really designed to be to hold the wire to the board mechanically. It's more for making good electrical contact. So if you start playing around with this too much, this will break off and you'll have to resolder it again. And if you rip it really hard, then sometimes it will actually, the wire will take some of the contact pad with it. So that then makes it much more difficult to actually apply it again, or to resolder it. So one thing that you can do is you can use some hot glue. You can just put like a huge dab of hot glue right here. So hot glue is typically electrically non-conductive, and that will give it a little bit more mechanical strength if you're moving it around and whatnot. If we look on the back side here, let me get another wire. We'll just show you how to connect to the back. So just tune this guy. Make sure to be careful not to inhale too many fumes. Get that little extra on. This one we will connect, I don't know if this is the select button or the start button, but we'll attach it to that one. So same exact thing, but it's a little bit easier to do it on the back. Unplug that. Because you don't have to worry about short-circuiting the thing. So apply a little bit of solder, get some solder on that pad. Then do the same exact thing. Just very lightly tap it down, and we're good to go. So we can then check that we've made a good connection. Same exact process. Connect the live side to our new terminal and then connect to ground, and we do have a circuit. So that's all good. So that's how you do it to the front, to the back. There are a couple of tricky ones if you're going on the back to get to, because one of the buttons is right here. That one's not too bad, but the two that are really hard is this one here, and there's one that's actually like inside the trigger button. So this one you kind of end up just having to very carefully solder in here, and you're probably going to catch some of this plastic and burn a little bit of it, but that's okay. This one in here, you can get it in under the these levers here with the trigger, but it's a little bit tricky to then be able to get the soldering iron, the solder, and the wire all in there. So oftentimes I will just disconnect this lever here, connecting the trigger to the actual, this is a variable resistor. Sometimes I like to just cut a hole in here so that we can get better access to it. So typically I'll just pop this lever off. So that's that connects the actual trigger to this variable resistor here. It's also called a potentiometer. Basically that just allows you to have different degrees of control. So in fact, like on the Xbox One, the triggers are analog inputs, so you can have differing amounts of pull in there. But pull that out, and then just take some cutters, not being very gentle with it. And there we go. Yeah. Cut a little access port. The trigger's weakened a little bit, but we're not actually going to be using it. So that gives you a little extra space, so then you can put wire in there along with solder and then be able to actually get it in there. But you'll probably end up burning a little plastic, make it a little smelly, but oh well. All right, so you then do that for every single one of the buttons that you want. So currently, basically we have the regular ABXY, these ones as well for your start Xbox and back buttons. The two bumpers are these two little buttons here. So those can be soldered on the back as well. So you have one here and one here that you can solder to. And then the last ones are the directional controls. So these ones, there's 5 pins here. So 4 of them are live for each one of the 4 directions, and then there's one ground pin that's used in common between all of them. And I believe, we're plugged in, it's typically the last pin down. Generally it's the very bottom pin is the ground, and then the other 4 are for up, down, left, and right. So those things are the ones that you actually want to solder to. So take another. Need a little bit more solder. These ones can be a little bit tricky to connect to, just because you have 4 of them that you have to make very close together. So similar to the contacts on the other buttons is that you don't want to accidentally connect 2 of the directions together. You want to keep them separate. So there we go. That's one connected there. So I just soldered it directly on the face there. But if you have some lighter gauge wire, you could actually wrap it around and use these things like as terminal, what are they? Turret terminals. Which give you a better mechanical connection. But we could also just douse this with hot glue as well if you wanted to. All right, so that's the actual what you need on the board. Once that's done, then we can start talking about the PCB.